Hi team, Philosopher Gamer here, and today I am playing some Braid. And if you notice straight away, I paused it there. The interesting thing about Braid is it says our world with its rules of causality. So there is our philosophical topic of this episode. This is part of my series on indie games, and how in fact often indie games are significantly more philosophical than mainstream games. So, take Braid for example, which has causality. Except that's the issue with Braid, is that there is no causality involved in Braid. The world that we see it is made up of different causes and different reasons. In Braid, you are given the ability to reverse time and therefore eliminate any need for causality. And this leads me on to death in video games, which is something that I mentioned earlier in an earlier video that I was going to talk about. So I think now would be the best time to broach the subject. So Braid is a good example of a game in which there is no death. It just doesn't happen. You can rewind time infinitely, basically. In other games, they have checkpoints for death, and various different bits for how death works. I think it's an interesting subject, death in video games, because they have to, or developers have to attempt to put some weight behind death. Because at the moment, often in video games, death is weightless. You die, there is no consequences for you dying apart from you go back maybe a couple of, 5-10 minutes back to the last checkpoint. The older games, actually, I think it's quite a new thing that games give you so much freedom and you die once and you don't go back that far. I remember a game, if anyone played any of the Soul Reaver series, those games had save points few and far between, and if you died, you went back to your last save, which could be 2 hours behind what you've done. I remember once I was playing one of the first Soul Reaver games, I think, and I actually left my PlayStation on all night to make sure that I didn't lose the bit that I was at. And that is a clear consequence of death in video games. And I think that's, I'm not saying it's necessarily better. I mean, it detracts from the fun a bit, because it is incredibly annoying having, especially in Soul Reaver, you collect all those things, you kill all those enemies, and combat in Soul Reaver was difficult. Very, very difficult. So doing all of that, you come back and then you die. Not a nice experience at all, I remember. But I think Braid approaches the subject pretty interestingly, with its ability to control time, and essentially not just reduce death completely, but reduce causality. And there is no cause. In a game like Modern Warfare 2, when you play that online, there is a consequence. There is probably more consequence, in fact, to online Modern Warfare 2 play than there is in single player, because you lose your kill streak. And essentially that is what Modern Warfare 2 Online is about getting kill streaks. You want to get as many kill streaks as you can. You want to do the best you can. And as soon as you die, then you lose those kill streaks and you go back to the beginning and you're just like Mr. Nobody again. So you could be there with your Harrier, you just got your Pavler, you're 2 off your AC-130 or your chopper gunner, and boom, you're dead. You're back to nothing again. Yeah, you still got the Harrier and the Pavler going around, but the fact that you've died has reduced your kill streak to nothing, and you've missed out on your AC-130 or your Harrier. You'll notice, actually, just quickly, you'll notice with this Braid clip that it skips around a lot. That's because I was having some problems with fraps. It didn't seem to want to behave at all, which is annoying, but that's just how it works. Anyway, back to death and causality. So you talk about Modern Warfare 2, and the fact that when you die on online play on Modern Warfare 2, you lose your kill streak. Whereas in a single player, you go back to a checkpoint, and the checkpoints in the single player campaign of Modern Warfare 2 are pretty short. I mean, what I mean by that is it's about a minute. Most you're going to be behind yourself is a couple of minutes of gameplay, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It certainly makes the game more user-friendly, but it definitely detracts from the nature of it. I mean, I'm not going to get into any of what effects it has, not being able to die, or anything like that. Sorry about that, team. Sorry, my microphone decided to play up, and I disconnected. Anyway, back to what I was talking about is death in video games. Death in Modern Warfare 2 I was on, and death in checkpoints. Thing is, yeah, in Modern Warfare 2 you die, and you come back to life. In other games you die, and you come back to life and you lose some of your items, which is the penalty of dying. Game like Heavy Rain, you die and that's it. You go and play on as another character. And it would be interesting, definitely from a philosophical point of view, if dying in video games actually meant you died. I mean, I don't want to get too carried away, but imagine if in real life when you died, you didn't die, if you see what I mean. How would life be different? Well, I want to link in Lucretius at this point, who was a Roman philosopher, writing at about the same time as Cicero, before Virgil. He was within the Epicurean tradition. That is, he viewed pleasure as the utmost aim of a good life, and all life should revolve around pleasure. So he basically said that the one thing holding humans back was fear of death, and that if we all stopped fearing death, we would live more pleasant lives. And he certainly got a point if we did stop, because one of the biggest issues, I think, of being human is that we are incredibly aware of our humanity. And if we stopped fearing death, and we realise that our lives are limited, and we accepted that and just lived as normal, then a lot of our problems would go away. And it's a theme that perhaps developers don't deliberately broach the subject, but it's certainly prevalent in video games. That people die in video games, but don't die. There is death, but it's not final. There is no causality, if you like, in video games. While Braid, you can reverse actions, rewind any action that you've done, replace any cause. In other video games, you can't replace the cause, but death doesn't exist, put simply. And I mean, I'm not saying death should exist, because it'd be a pretty rubbish computer game if you turn it on and you die in the first 5 minutes and that's it, game over, you can't play anymore. I mean, that would not be a good thing at all. I don't think anyone would ever play them again. It would possibly be the most boring thing imagined, but there's still that essence that death, they could just do something more with death, perhaps. They can just make death a little bit more interesting. It's not... I respect the games that try harder to do something with death and make it slightly more consequential, but they don't want to make it boringly consequential, that's the thing. Because they don't want to isolate viewers. Anyway, let's go back to Braid and how that approaches the subject. I don't know how many of you actually played Braid, but it is a very good game definitely worth getting, and one that I would highly recommend to those of you who have not played it before. As far as indie game goes, very good. I will be doing another episode on Braid, purely because I enjoy it, but I also want to broach some of the other issues that Braid touches on, which is the kind of boundaries of humanity, if you like.
Because Braid is very much a game where humanity is in control. The character could rewind time. They have the quote at the very end of the game, now we are all sons of bitches, which is what, I can't remember exactly who it was, but I'll check that up, said after they detonated the atom bomb. And Braid is definitely demonstrates that humanity is grounded. Anyway, I think that's probably about all we got time for. So keep thinking, keep philosophizing, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.